meet the candidates. Oh, thank you. Thank
Sorry.
you. I'm Karen Steinhaus, and I'm reading these off camera because I haven't memorized my opening statements. So apologies for the lack of eye contact for a moment. I'm Karen Steinhaus. I'm on the board of directors of the Redondo Heights condominium. We're going to start off by meeting everyone, but before we get started, I'll give you an idea of how we hope this evening will unfold. And before I forget, Kirk just reminded us that this meeting is being recorded. I'll quickly begin by introducing the rest of the board. David Emery is our president. You can say hi there. Judy Corey is our treasurer. Lisa France is our secretary. And Kirk Dornan is our vice president and Zoom host extraordinaire. He's offering all the support for Zoom.
Rookie.
I'll go ahead and read the agenda and then review a few of the ground rules. So our agenda is to welcome and introduce the candidates, and we'll give 10 to 15 minutes per candidate for the following. Their statements to include the Redondo issues from the candidate's point of view, plans for issue resolution, the first thing to do for Redondo after a candidate is elected with a time frame, and how the candidates plan to keep Redondo residents informed of progress. We'll have questions from the floor as time and interest allows, and then we'll ask for quick closing remarks from the candidates, and then we'll sign off. The board of directors will sign off. So why don't we just go ahead? Let me see here. Before I get to the candidates, just a few ground rules. We'll keep the audience muted. I'm not sure exactly what the candidates will talk to us about, but like I said, we've provided an agenda. We hope that they'll go ahead and speak to us regarding the agenda. I'll call at them one at a time, but let's be okay if they end up with a little talking amongst themselves as a way of sharing perspectives and their history of the Redondo neighborhood. Although the candidates are asked to speak directly to the Redondo issues of loud and reckless driving and illegal use of the boat launch parking lot, I don't know exactly what they'll say or how long it will take. I'll take a look at 30 minutes in and see where we are. Hopefully the candidate's presentation will answer our questions, but we also have the opportunity to ask questions of the candidates. And you can use the chat box to post your questions, or depending on how things are flowing, I can facilitate some of those questions right out loud. But do keep your questions to 1 or 2 sentences, please, and keep it to the topic of the issues we are addressing. The candidates did not come prepared to discuss the redevelopment of the boat launch parking lot, specifically such incidents or the marina. Hopefully we'll have other times and places to bring up those issues. Okay, so that's enough rules for now. We'll go to the candidate. Priscilla Vargas, can you wave and say hi? And hi, thank you again for joining us. And Jean Achziger. Thank you. Both are running for position 3, and there are no incumbents for position 3. So Priscilla, if you don't mind, we can start with you, and sure. Then we'll go ahead and hear from Nat. So again, questions from the agenda as you were made aware of.
Yes, and again, I appreciate all of your time this evening. I know it's later in the day and you hopefully had dinner beforehand, or your stomach might be growling about now. Just a little background again, I'm Priscilla Vargas, and I am running for the Des Moines City Council position 3. I am someone that has had transportation in my blood for over 33 years, both public and private sector. Most of my career has been working with people with disabilities and seniors, and complying with ADA requirements in the transportation arena. So I have an extensive background in working with a whole number of different types of people and folks that are maybe seeking more support and more I think just more benefit for what they may experience with the challenges that they that they have, especially with the disability community. I had the opportunity of actually listening to the Zoom call last night, and it was great to be an observer. I want to reassure everyone on the call and extend it out to the residents that I'm committed to making improvements in the entire South area, including Redondo. I really take your concerns serious and have given it a lot of thought. I had the opportunity, like I said, to listen to the board members' concerns last night, and am intimately aware while on the call what the issues are as it relates to safety and quality of life. So that's sort of the high level issues that I'm understanding that the residents are most concerned with, and we can distill it down as I continue with my information that I wanted to share with you. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Chief Thompson to get background information and perspective on the situation in Redondo and what efforts have been made to address the concerns, including what I heard last night and what I understand it to be through my experience at Redondo, and also with what I learned from you all just in pursuing this meeting, which is, loud noise, cruising, loitering, and illegal activities. And there's more to that, but certainly, again, I can distill it down further, but wanted to certainly acknowledge that those are the issues that I understand and the concerns that you all have. And certainly I take it very seriously, because if something does need to get done. I've learned a lot about what's going on with the city. Obviously, you need more police in the city, and I think it's pretty well known that certainly at the board meeting, there's going to be the city manager, I think, is pursuing hiring some additional police officers, which is a good thing. Certainly we need to have that, because the city does need more police. And also, as part of my due diligence, I've done ride-alongs with the police covering virtually all of Des Moines, including Redondo, and I'll continue to do ride-alongs throughout my campaign and thereafter. I think it's so important to know what's going on in the community, and that's really a great way to find out. I want to reassure you that I really want to fight for Redondo. I really think that the police and the city administration need to be held accountable. I've heard comments last night like, Redondo is not worthy. Why is Redondo a stepchild to Des Moines? Why aren't council members thinking about what offends Redondo residents? We're concerned about declining home values. The noise level is so high between 8:30 and 10 p.m. that we can't hear the TV. I don't feel safe to go out after 4 p.m. Police have failed in enforcement. There was a shooting on Saturday, and a person was injured. And I hear that, I understand, and I want to be able to advocate for Redondo based on all of what you shared last night that I was able to gain from that discussion. I think it was a really good discussion. What I'd like to give, and I think that that's part of the agenda here, which is the first thing to do for Redondo after the candidate is elected. And the time frame is a little bit maybe not as nailed down at this point, but when I'm elected, my plan of action based on the concerns as you have shared and what I understand them to be will include me working with my colleagues on council, the city administration, the public works and chief of police to do some of the following that I think will really make an impact with what I think you would feel would be important to have happen. And one is to close the gates at 8 p.m. A longer term fix will be to install that security arm and paid parking machines. I think that would be fantastic. And I know what's going to happen. It's just, again, the timeline on that, we talked about a little bit last night, and you did with Tracy, but certainly shorter term is closing the gates at 8 p.m. I don't have an answer as to why, except for what was shared last night as to why that change occurred when you did have the gates closed at 8 for a little while. A saying is for a cup of coffee. What that means is it wasn't for long enough. Certainly not for long enough. And then a greater increased police presence, that will actually issue citations The presence is really important, but also issuing the citations and following through with that is equally important, or even more important. And then the illegal parking. Again, I really learned a lot from what I heard with respect to installing. My suggestion would be installing no parking signage, and basically indicating that it's subject to towing, but then tow, not just say subject to towing, that there's actually towing occurring. That really does impact folks when it's hitting their pocketbook. And I think that will definitely make a difference. The loud noise. There are existing laws on the books that address noise mitigation, but beefing up enforcement is really important. And I think that is something that, with the addition of police coverage, more police officers, that beefing up of enforcement can be a reality. And cruising. And I know, Karen, you had said, it's not so much the speeding, it's the cruising that's an issue. And certainly that enforcement is really critical to, really mitigate the cruising that's occurring. And so with that, what I would suggest also is a routine quarterly reporting on progress of even these items that I've just mentioned, which to me are more feasible, at least when I become a council member. I know there are some longer term improvements that are scheduled, but these are, to me, improvements that I would like to see happen right away. And one of the other things that I just wanted to share is that I've tried to meet with a lot of different people, and I'm planning to meet with Dave Updegrove on Friday and give him, perspective of what I understand is going on in Redondo, along with other parts of the city, but certainly Redondo. And I would want to encourage your participation, your input, so that you can be heard, because that's really what this is all about, being heard and having action take place after you can share with what you're saying, what's going on, your experiences, etc. So those are the things that I'm thinking of, and I hope that you can share with me what your thoughts are through this discussion. But again, I really appreciate you giving me the time this evening and yesterday as well to get to learn more about what's really happening in Redondo. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Karen.
Okay. Well, thank you, Priscilla. And I do appreciate the fact that you were interested enough to attend yesterday. I do appreciate that. I think we all do. Even though it wasn't exactly, it didn't go quite the way, with only one person, the agenda got a little tossed around, but I'm glad you heard whatever it was that we wanted to say. And with that, why don't we have Jean for 10-15 minutes talk to us regarding the agenda questions that we posed to you.
Thank you. Well, everybody, I'm Gene Achziger, and I'm candidate for position 3 on the Des Moines City Council. In briefly talking to some of the audience members, it seems that I need to introduce myself, even though I've lived here for 45 years. Over that time, I served 14 years as the Redondo Community Club president. And I also led the effort to annex Redondo and Woodmont to the city of Des Moines. One of the key issues at that time was policing. And the differences between going to Des Moines or going to Federal Way was that the ratio of police officers in Des Moines to residents was 800 to 1, and I believe it was 1050 to 1 for Federal Way. So for a lot of people, it was the increased policing that was the driving factor. Anyway, the election was on May 13th, 1996, and we became part of the city of Des Moines on January 1st, 1997. At that time, after serving all that time as community club president, I thought that I could move on to other issues. And so I became the president of the Pacific Northwest Newspaper Guild, where I was working in Seattle with the Seattle Post Intelligencer. And we proceeded to go on and have contract negotiations. And so I don't know how many of you were here at the time, but the infamous 2000 newspaper strike in Seattle, I was president at that time.
Jean, I'm having a little difficulty hearing you. You're kind of unsmooth. If you could maybe closer to your mic, that would be nice. Thanks.
I'm wondering if maybe I should shut down some of the other windows that I have open, because I've seen messages before that could be a problem.
Okay,
So,
why don't you take a moment to do that then?
Bear with me for a minute, I'll log off on some of this stuff.
Okay.
I have a lot of windows open.
A lot going on.
Yes. Okay. Make sure I don't lose you. Okay, hopefully, is that better?
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Jean.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So anyway, I was at the Seattle PI then until the Great Recession hit, and the PI determined that Hearst Corporation determined to go online only, and 167 of my fellow employees, we found ourselves without work. And so I came back and went to Highline Community College to brush up on some skills, and I got a degree in graphic design, and it also afforded me to get more involved in the Des Moines community. And it was that year that I led the effort to save the Mount Rainier pool. The city council had decided that it was too expensive to maintain the pool, and the community didn't necessarily agree. And so we proceeded to form the Des Moines Pool Metropolitan Park District to keep that pool open so that we could continue to serve as a swimming instructor for our local kids. I'm really proud of the fact that it was the height of the recession, and we managed to get 65% of the voters to tax themselves extra in order to keep that pool open. So it took a lot of persuasion. And I think that that's, one of my focal points is participation and getting people involved. I then was requested 2 years later to help save the Tukwila pool, and I did that, and they're still in operation. Along the way, my community involvement earned me in 2012 the City of Des Moines Spirit of Des Moines Award. And then in 2014, I became the president of the Des Moines Legacy Foundation, which over the years since 1999, we've raised $1.5 million to help disadvantaged youth and seniors participate in projects. Around Redondo, you may have seen me. I not put a name to it and stuff. I'm the guy that puts up the holiday lights down on the arbors and the giant pumpkins and whatever, the wreath and everything at Christmas. I'm also the guy that does the bonfire for when the Christmas ship comes. And I have a bit of a affinity for history. And those of you may notice I own the Bubbleator, which is up the street. It's the relic from the 1962 World's Fair. So all of this, it's by way of saying, okay, I've been here a while and been participating. With regards to the problems we're facing here in Redondo, I am intimately aware of, what the problems are, at least from the aspect of someone who I walk the boardwalk 4 miles every night. So I see a lot of what's going on. And in those walks, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I've been egged. I've had M80s thrown at me. I've seen cruising and harassment by people on the roadway. One of their particularly irritating things is they will glide up behind you and then hit their exhaust. So the machine gun or just loud popping and stuff, they laugh hysterically when they see how high you jump. And so it's particularly irritating. So, and the problems don't end there. I mean, as you get to the south end, you see cars, with incredible speed going up the hill. You also see them coming down the hill with incredible speed, endangering people. As I walk through the central core down there, opposite the Redondo Heights condominium, I've been propositioned by obvious drug sellers in the cars along there. It seems to be an open air drug market down there. One of the most dangerous parts is when you walk north by the Bayshore condominium, north of Salty's there, and people come careening off the hillside down there, and the only thing protecting the people on the boardwalk is, or not on the boardwalk, but on the walkway there, is 8 inches of curb. And I've several times thought that I would have to jump the bulkhead there and go into the drink, because people are just violating the rules all over the place. So I'm intimately aware of problems down there, and some of the things that people have talked about. It goes beyond just the noise, the loud stereos, and all of that. There's illegal fireworks, incendiary devices being lit off, these balloons that have that are being powered by the flame that they launch, and they drift over houses and that sort of thing. Not a safe thing. So there's really a series of problems that we have down here. And I think that one of the real problems is that the crux of the problem switches by which block you're in. I mean, you obviously have problems that are directly associated with the parking lot down there. But to the south end, people not being able to use the crosswalks because they come roaring through the crosswalks and almost run you over. The high speeds going up the South Hill, you name it. It varies from block to block. And as you get off of Beach Drive back onto Soundview and 287, you've got drug deals going on at the intersection. You've got people parked right on top of the stop signs and the intersections, making them difficult to pass those areas. I think I really appreciate what the efforts that are being made by particularly people in your condominium to try and pull people together for meetings. We need to sit down and, as a community, discuss what the problems are and identify exactly what it is that's going on. And I think an example of how this, I think, is not being done is the recent law passed by the city council addresses problems that they are important, as far as the meetups and the drifting things that go on up in the business park to the north end, but we really don't have that much of that, down here in Redondo. Our issues are more noise, speeding up and down the hill, that sort of thing. And so I think that we really haven't hit, the issues here. And the first part is to sit down and be able to determine exactly what is going on. And for that, we should have a community forum. We used to do this. We used to meet up at Woodmont Elementary, and the city would come out and we would sit and we would talk about the issues. and try and get a handle on things. We haven't done that in a long time. And so that kind of fact finding is important if we're going to actually affect meaningful change. And then we have to sit down and figure out exactly what is legal. There's been some question over the fact of does it do any good to videotape people that are obviously causing problems, but if the officer isn't there to see it, what can be done? We need to figure out exactly what it is we can do. And we have another opportunity here. They just invested more than $3 million in repairing the boardwalk, and now we're in the process of repairing the fishing pier and relocating the restrooms to the east side. And that's another $7 million, I believe, that's coming in here. If we don't understand the problems exactly, then are we missing an opportunity to use infrastructure to try and solve some of our problems? And I'll give you one quick example that it may seem trivial, but we have 6 crosswalks within one block down there. And a lot of congestion, people using this as a bypass to get to West Federal Way in the morning going the opposite direction. But we have 6 crosswalks, and a lot of times they're not used. Especially one of the things is with the divers. They've got their heavy equipment and stuff. They go the straightest line to go across the road, and you've got all kinds of congestion going on because, you know, people are not where they're supposed to be. A simple thing in using infrastructure is building walls to channel people into the crosswalks. We used to have a police chief here, Roger Baker, who at one time was the director of security at Disneyland. And he was a huge advocate of using infrastructure to control people's behavior. And those are things that we could apply down here to, you know, make things work better. Enforcement is important. Unfortunately, over the years, Des Moines police have had the attitude that they want commissioned police officers to, you know, do any citations as far as parking or, you know, some of these other problems. It was interesting for a while there. We had we had employees from the marina were in charge of ticketing people that were parked illegally in the parking lot down there. And there was one kid, summer work replacement, making $10 an hour. And he one day wrote 34 tickets in the parking lot, more than paid for his services. But what it did was it started sending a message that, okay, if you do something illegal in Redondo, you're gonna, you know, pay the price. And just by enforcing the existing rules, we were making some headway. We haven't done that in a long time. So another thing that I'm concerned about is the police. I talked to the police this last Saturday.
Do you have one more minute?
Okay. I talked to the police this last Saturday, and one of the things they were doing is saying, well, we're focusing all our attention on enforcement in, you know, Redondo right now. And my understanding is we have no more than 5 patrol cars on duty at any time within the city. And if 4 of them are in Redondo, we've got large stretches of the city that are not getting, you know, the policing that they need. So we need to come up with a way that we can, you know, understand what the laws are and institute proposals that will actually do something.
Okay, so that's 15.
Okay.
So I just want to say clearly, you enjoy community participation and living in Redondo. So that came through loud and clear. And living down here, you certainly are perfectly aware of the things that we continue to complain about on a nightly basis. So that is that's our 10 to 15 minutes from the candidates. So we're going to go probably about an hour, like I said, an hour or so. So perhaps we can start taking some questions from the floor. And if you don't mind, just raising your hand and letting me call on you.
No.
We can do it that way. Questions? David?
Thank you to both the candidates. It sounds like I'm hearing a fairly nuanced understanding of what our issues is. I've asked the other candidates, I want to point out to these candidates, the two of you today, I have an advantage of sitting on the third floor here at Redondo Heights condominiums, and I can observe what's going on. And I gotta say, the police response has really been impotent. And I know when I attended one of the city council meetings in June, I've heard from others, the police are touting all that they're doing down here. But I gotta say, they're wasting their time a lot of the time. After that council meeting, I took a look at a few police blotters, and it looked like most of the ticket writing activities were from speed traps with the morning commuters that does absolutely nothing with the problems we have down here in the late afternoon and evening. A lot of the ticketing is going after vehicles that are parked without people in them, whereas almost all the cars that are causing the problems down here have the owners and the occupants are loitering around their car. And so,
your question?
Yeah, so I have a twofold question for the candidates, whether you feel that you can go to the police department and work with them to help them understand what they're doing is not working. And there's some simple things they can do to help fix it. And the other is there's a noise ordinance the city of Des Moines has. And as far as I can tell, tickets never, ever get written for the noise ordinance. If you were incumbents, I would ask you to go home and do some homework and ask yourself of the city how many tickets have been written. I'm sorry. Chapter, here it is. City Ordinance Chapter 7.36. And when you find no, the police never ever write tickets for that. Ask the police why.
Thank you. Priscilla, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I would. And thank you for the questions, David. One is that your first question had to do with going to the police department and trying to get my voice heard as a council member for Redondo. And I'm proud to say that I actually have been endorsed by the Police Guild. And if you just give me 1 second, I have to plug my laptop in because my battery is running low. Technical difficulties here. I don't want to lose you.
I understand.
So that is something that I certainly am able to say with a comfort level that I would be able to have that link to the police, including Chief Thomas. And like I said, I've done some ride-alongs already and intend to do more. But I do feel like I have a strong link there with the police and want to get even more involved. So that would be something I think that would be really advantageous as a person that has the endorsement, has met a number of the police force, and has a relationship with Chief Thomas. Your second question had to do with the noise ordinance, and I remember hearing you talk about this the other night, and certainly I think that is something that I touched on when I gave my presentation as well, is that really doing more with that ordinance in order to enforce is really important with citations. So there needs to be more, like I said, beefing up of enforcement. And I think it would get at, really pushing forward what is already, in a city ordinance. So that would be something else that I would definitely push for. Knock on doors, knock down doors to make it happen.
Thank you. Jean, would you like to respond to those two questions?
First of all, David, I want to congratulate you. And it's when citizens are able to collect data and go through the data and discover things like, where the tickets are being written and that sort of thing. This is important. And here's another thing that I would like to know, and it's data that would need to be mined out of those tickets, is where are these people coming from? Because a lot of them, I believe, are coming from Federal Way. And anybody that's been up the South Hill knows, especially the speeding up and down the South Hill, no one goes 25 miles an hour on that road. They bottom out, when they hit Redondo, and it's crazy. Our police department, I think, should be in contact with the Federal Way Police Department, because it's a cross border problem here. And maybe if they were working in tandem, and it became well known that, okay, there's a area that you don't want to go in because the police are patrolling this and they're doing a job. One of the big problems we have, I know, for the police department down here is that there are a few places for them to pull off to be able to catch people that are speeding up and down the road. Again, this is addressing the speeding problem and not some of the other ones right now. But the thing is that I know that I and others in the community have offered at times to act as spotters or lookouts for the police department to let them know that a troublesome vehicle is on their way, so that if they are at the far end of the beach, they can be looking out for it. Again, this is something we have to check the legality, but I know that Lori Lucky had some video before of people that were committing noise infractions down, and they were told that, well, if the police don't see the video, or if the police don't see the action, the video is not sufficient if they can't identify the person. But, and again, I would have to check this out with the lawyers, but if you then have identified the vehicle and they're running up the road going the other direction, can that information be relayed ahead to the police officers so that they're paying particular attention to that vehicle as it comes by? Another problem, I think, with the police department is, or the police vehicles, is that they're like mini, substations. And oftentimes the officers are concentrating on their computer screens. They've got the windows rolled up. They're not hearing the noise necessarily. And also their attention is often distracted. At the south end, I will say that in the last 2 months, I have almost been run over. I've been at the crosswalk, and as you know, the law says that you're supposed to stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk. I've been almost run over twice by Des Moines police officers because they're so busy, doing all of this other thing. For a while down here, we had bicycle policemen. If they were working in tandem, even if the police are not comfortable working with citizens as lookouts, if someone could be working, from that aspect, to work in tandem to try and overcome some of the logistical problems we have down here in catching people. But again, I think the question was, what would I do? The number one thing I think is not for me to go to the police necessarily. It's for the police to listen to the community. And that, I think, is what the critical thing is that we need more opportunities for the public to speak out.
Okay, Jean, I'm going to interrupt you there because I want to, before we bird hop to another topic, I want to make sure that other people have an opportunity to ask their questions, and I'll ask mine at the end if it hasn't already been asked. So let me put it out to our participants. Any questions? And this can be from anyone in the audience. So if our council members want to, I see you, Lori. If the council members feel like they want to ask a question, just let us know. But I do see Lori has her hand up. So welcome, Lori. Thank you. But keep your question to a couple of sentences, and then I'll direct them to the candidates.
Okay.
Thank you.
About a month ago, I started corresponding with the city council about our problems.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Mr. Matthias and the chief one of them wrote me back and said, we'd like to meet with you. And I also CC'd it to Ms. Banks. And when I wrote back to the chief and said, I know that a lot of people in my condominium group would like to hear what you two have to say, but we need to set a time when you could meet with more than just me. I never heard from them again. And I think that the idea of us being a group where we get heard by the Des Moines is very important. And I wonder if you feel like you can facilitate this when you get on the city council.
Jean, you want to go ahead and address that first, please?
Yes, exactly. That's one of the things that I'm running on.
Thank you, Lori.
I'm sorry?
I said, thank you, Lori.
Oh, okay. Community community response and community participation. We really need to enable our communities to speak out and let their government know what's going on. And whether it's community councils or representing particular neighborhoods or communities of interest. We have a Hispanic community. We have, a Black community that are not geographically located, but have particular concerns. There needs to be a mechanism for our various communities to be heard. And in this case, for Redondo, it's a perfect example that hold a public meeting and, let people come out and, their voices be heard. And it also, I think it lets the officials know that they're not just isolated complaints. And so that I think is the biggest thing, is amplifying the public's voice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. And Priscilla, would you like to address Lori's question too?
Yes. And I really appreciate the question. Thank you for that, Lori. I really want to stress that as part of what I shared earlier with respect to quarterly reporting and updates is certainly to have a quarterly community forum as well, so that the residents can share their concerns directly with the police and directly with city administration and council members. So this is something that you need to have that kind of interaction in order to see some sort of solutions that can surface from that communication. So that's just all about communication, and so important. So I would certainly be advocating for that and be pushing for that as you all need to be part of that whole process. And I just wanted to also just mention that just to get back at one of the previous questions, is that I'm also exploring the issue of multi-jurisdictional cooperation with other cities whose residents frequent Redondo, like Federal Way. So that is something that I think is a good opportunity when it comes to multi-jurisdictional interrelations, if you will.
Thank you, Priscilla. It's thoughtful.
You're welcome.
Let me go back out to our audience and see if there are other questions. Anyone want to ask? Okay, I do have a couple of questions, but I didn't want to butt in before other people had the opportunity to ask theirs. So I'll just go ahead. I have, like I said, 2 questions. One is, I think we all like the idea of a community forum. So how would you go about creating that? And it sounds like you both are advocates of that as well. So that's, put a pin in that one for just a moment. And this is my particular frustration. And why do you think Redondo has devolved to the point that it has? The problem is not enforcement. Something happened way before enforcement that is now requiring enforcement. And we can't fix this until we get to the crux of why Redondo is at this point. And I am just beside myself with this. I really like the idea of, more enforcement. I know we need that in the interim. But we all want to live in a community where we don't have to call the police every single night. That's not the answer. The answer is much, much deeper. We all know we communicate on 5, 6, 7 different levels. What happened? Why is Redondo like this? I'll back up. Sorry for that. My first question was, how would you go about creating that forum that I do think we just do so desperately need? And then why did Redondo devolve to this? Oh, I'm sorry. Priscilla, if you don't mind starting with that, please.
No, that's fine. Thank you. And again, really appreciate your thoughts and your well thought out questions, everyone. The idea of a community forum and how I would organize that forum. Well, I am someone that really pushes for and is an advocate for and a proponent for consensus building, for cooperation, collaboration, and transparency. And so what I'd like to see happen in trying to organize that forum is that buy-in from my colleagues on the council, and that commitment from the city administration and the police force, the police chief, and have something that is actually scheduled. Work with you work with a liaison essentially to make sure that we can set up a date, a time, and have it be on a quarterly basis and a location. And those kinds of logistics need to be considered as well, but certainly have something structured so that I have that buy-in from the council members and from city and police, so that there is that ability to have everybody together at the same time. Now, whether it's down the road in person, which we all hope for, because I think that would be great. But in the meantime, depending on where we're at with the pandemic, even just having the Zoom, the Zoom plan, if you will, I think it would be really effective. That's kind of our world. But certainly I have a lot of experience in organizing events, whether it be a forum, any kind of public outreach. So it wouldn't be something that would be new to me to be able to get that orchestrated. Your second question about, why did Redondo devolve into the situation, into the point that you are now. And you're right, it's not necessary, it's way beyond enforcement. It's what happened. A lot, I think, can probably be considered with respect to folks that are coming in and out of the area. Maybe there's folks that are moving in that aren't as committed to where they live. They might not have the feelings that you all have about where they live. There's certainly that everywhere you go. So there could be an element of that. You are also your regional destination, if you will, your regional landmark in a sense. Redondo is very popular. People really love going there. If they don't live there, they love going there. If you live there, you've got this gem, right there at your fingertips. It's a fantastic place to go visit and to play, have fun. And so, you've got all that going on for you, and at the same time, you're bringing in, unfortunately, a lot of distasteful things that are becoming more and more difficult for you all to tolerate. That I mean, there's more to peel the onion on this. I mean, definitely, Karen. I can't just, you know, put my finger on it right now and say it's because of this. But I think that, you know, there's a lot of different factors, and one of them is that you really are, Redondo is a place that people want to go to, and they're not always the best folks that are coming through, unfortunately.
Thank you. Thank you. And Jean, perhaps you'd like to, I'm sorry, I'm moving a bunch of papers around here taking notes. The community forum, I'm interested in how you'd go about creating that. What are the things that you would do? And then why do you think Redondo has devolved to the point that it has? Because if we can't understand what went very powerfully south in Redondo, I don't really see how we're going to pull ourselves out.
Okay, first, with regard to the forums, I will point out that in the past, the city council used to move its meetings to various community sites. And there were a number of times we had city council meetings would take place at Woodmont Elementary. The council actually came to the neighborhood and invited people in, and there was an opportunity there for people to speak directly to the council. We've also had the mayor-appointed advisory council. Unfortunately, it has not met since 2017. You know, there's these initiatives that are put forward and there's no follow through. So I would, you know, be a very strong advocate of, you know, getting on people's cases and saying, look, we've got to be out and talking to communities. Also, I you know, think that there's a place for, I think we have 9 basically identified areas in the city. We could have somebody working through the Parks and Rec department acting as a liaison to these communities and enabling these communities to meet and bring forward their ideas. I mean, it doesn't have to, you don't necessarily have to be talking to the council, you know, directly, but it can be coming through the staff as to what's going on with communities and what the problems are. So I'd be looking to create some sort of framework that will allow that that voice to be bubbling up from the communities. I'm going to take a little bit different tact on Karen, on your question about how we devolved into this situation. And I hate it when people do this, but it's like, you know, I've been around for 45 years. We haven't devolved. We've never evolved from the situation. It was one of the reasons why we chose to go with the city of Des Moines, was because of the amount of police presence. This problem has always been here. And we just haven't gotten any effort to address it.
Okay.
And there were things that were promised when we became part of the city that have not come through. For one example, there was supposed to be signage and everything at the south end that indicated that you were in Des Moines. You know, we wanted to be, you know, to let people know that, hey, you're not in Federal Way. And it goes, sorry, this is a really small thing, but if you look in the rest of the city, all of the street signs have a sailboat on them. So, you know, we have blue signs that are distinctive from everybody else. All of the signs in the north of 272nd have the sailboat on them. We don't. It's like we were an afterthought. We got the old signs. And I think that, you know, people that feel that we're the redheaded stepchild, I mean, that's a small.
Oh, no, I think it's very indicative.
But we need to have, let me quickly back up to one thing. We are a destination point. There are almost 1 million people behind us throughout the rest of King County, here in South King County, almost 1 million people. There are only 5 public accesses to the water, and 3 of them are in Des Moines. And we're one of those three, and we're the ones that have, I think, been neglected by the city as far as, you know, paying attention to the problem. So, you know, with all due respect, I don't think it's devolved. We've
Okay.
never evolved from the situation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I've only been here just over a year, so I've heard, you know, that it didn't used to be this bad, et cetera. So yeah, thank you. And it's a good point. I never did notice about those signs that, of course, the marina gets the pretty little sailboats and everything. And, you know, we get the leftover signs apparently. So I could go on, but I won't. Are there other questions? I know I have, I have a couple. Couple have direct emailed me, and why don't we go ahead and go ahead with Leslie first, please, if you would. Oh, unmute her, please. Thank you.
I have lived in this area since 1954.
You got me.
I beat you.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, and it has devolved. It's been a constant decline. And I don't understand how we can control what the city of Federal Way is not controlling that spills over into our community. Like I said, I've been here all those, I used to walk through the woods and come down here. There were no problems, none whatsoever. As the city of Federal Way deteriorated, it headed down to Redondo, the results of it. How would you address that?
Priscilla, if you would go ahead, we had Jean start last time, if you would, please.
Sorry.
Priscilla, please.
Okay. Well, Leslie, thank you for your question. And I am sure being in Redondo as long as you have, you've seen a lot of changes, definitely, especially talking about walking through woods. Things do change over the years, and it's still such a beautiful place. But I understand completely, and your question had to do with Federal Way and the fact that they're not able to really do what they should be doing at their level as a city. And so talking about any kind of, jurisdictional, multi-jurisdictional efforts, if you will, that you have a concern, how could they really be impactful when they're not really doing what they need to do in their own house? There definitely needs to be some correction to what they're not doing. And again, it's a different city, but there are ways in which to pull together and have Federal Way be accountable as well. And so that is, I think there's a process that needs to take place, but it's all about accountability, and some of those folks that are where they're at in Federal Way at this point are elected positions, and there are ways to make that change so that you can see some changes and some action or proactive ways in which to get things done multi-jurisdictionally. That's just the unfortunately reality with some folks that may not be that effective at the moment. I hope that helps to answer your question.
Thank you. I'm going to bump this along just a little bit. I know we're getting to that hour, but we do have a couple of more questions, and I'd like to give Jean an opportunity to respond to Leslie.
Okay, quickly, the speeding, for example, in the south end is going both directions. Federal Way has this problem too. It's marked 25 miles an hour to the top of the hill, and there are residents along there that are very concerned about their inability to pull out of their driveways, and just the noise of some of these mufflers coming up the hill. So it may be that we have to reach out, on a personal level, and this is where the community can have an impact. Is that they're literally our next door neighbors, and reach out and have them complain to their city council and get their people working. Another thing is that, and this has to do with not just the problems that we have right now with as far as the traffic and all of that, you know that the washout along the north side of Redondo Way, okay, 10 years ago, I'm a bit of a map freak and I look at satellite pictures all the time, and I happen to notice that it's in the city of Des Moines, but some of the people up in the Marlbrook area clear cut the area in order so that they would have views. That is the origin of the water that is coming down and washing out. It's done it 3 or 4 times now, washed out the north side of Auburn Redondo Way. And, you know, I took this to our Public Works Department. They said that they were, okay, well, they would turn it over to Federal Way. Nothing was done. It's the property up on top of the hill there was clear cut. It continues to be clear cut. And so, you know, there's no enforcement. There needs to be interaction between our city and Federal Way to say, okay, you're having an impact on us. You know, let's deal with this issue. And it comes along the whole ridge. I'm, you know, further on down the beach here, and we have people on the top of the hill in the Marine Hills area that their drains off of their houses just drain right over the hillside, and they're basically sluicing the hillside down. And we've had houses knocked off their foundation from, you know, slides coming down from Federal Way. The city government needs to take a more proactive position in dealing with our neighbors and saying, okay, you're causing problems for us. What can we do to fix it?
Another thing for our to-do list with the city council. I do have excuse me, I'm trying to read the chat room at the same time, but what I wanted, in one moment if I can, yes, hang on just a moment. Luisa, I see your question, but I do want to, if that's your only question, I want to ask JC if he'd like to go ahead and ask. And Luisa, I'll take a look at your question while we're getting to JC. Go ahead, please, JC.
Well, I just wanted to make sure there weren't any other audience members. Am I me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, if you
okay,
go
you
ahead
didn't
and
acknowledge.
ask.
Okay, so
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
I just wanted to, are
can you
there
hear
any
me?
other questions from anybody else? I don't want to ask. I don't want to take, because, you know, yeah, this is fine, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for, this is hands down the toughest candidate forum I have ever watched already. Okay, usually candidates can, you know, kind of skate by. You have asked some very direct questions, and that's really well done.
Thank you.
So here's, so my question for the candidates, which won't seem to be Redondo, but here's what it is. So it said, wait, here it says, you just sent me something saying I'm not allowed to participate.
No,
so
no,
yes,
no. Hang on, time out, please. Luisa asked me if that per my email, I'm just going to be a little moment of transparency here. Was it the understanding that council members are not to participate?
Yeah.
And the answer is not to participate, but as the community members, I feel it's okay for them to ask questions of their candidates. They're their candidates as well. So not participate, we are not asking you questions, city council members, but if you have questions of our candidates or your candidates too, and unless somebody has a problem with that.
I will defer to Councilmember Bangs. If she objects, I will not ask.
It's not up to Mrs. Bangs.
Well, I'm just, I'm trying to be as congenial as possible to everybody, really, truly. Okay?
I think our board is okay with it.
Cool. Okay.
And I just want a point of clarification on my email that they were not, please do not participate as though this was part of your campaign or endorse anyone, but if you have a question, please go ahead, JC. And please, JC, go ahead and ask.
Okay.
And Lisa, Anthony, if you have questions, feel free.
Okay, so yeah, just, this takes 10 seconds. The thing that the public does not generally understand about the job of council member is that it's self-defining. You decide for yourself how much time and how much stuff you put into it. And that's perfectly fine. Some people put in a few hours, some people put in like a ton of time. Here's my question for the candidates. If I request some information from the administration, which I feel is a legitimate part of doing my job, and the administration refuses, will you support me from the dais in directing the city manager to reply fully and with all due speed? That's it.
I have to object to that question. And the reason I object to that question is because you're asking on behalf of you being a city council member. And
Okay, well,
that is inappropriate. You're
Okay,
not as a personal citizen.
I withdraw. I could.
Okay, that's a
couch
good
it
point. We're going to close
hypothetically,
that
but,
part. We're going to close that part of the discussion down, Luisa. You have a good point.
Thank you.
If you can, and we can take this up at some other point, but this is actually to be asking about Redondo. So, and the questions that we have regarding Redondo. So apologies, JC, but I'm gonna move on and
well,
ask
wait, can I just add 10 seconds, please?
Go
Just
ahead.
10 seconds. Okay. The reason I asked that question is because of my intro. The job is self-defining. So your council member may take a special interest in your neighborhood, and that's why it's relevant. Thank you, and please
Thank
move
you,
on.
JC. Thank you, JC. I appreciate the clarification. So back on track. Are there other questions? Okay, hearing none. What I'd like to say is thank you to Priscilla and to Jean and to all of our attendees. It's been an interesting process, I think, for the board and for the Redondo Heights community in general. Certainly, I hope that the candidates, all of you, not just here tonight, but all of the candidates have come to appreciate how passionately we feel about Redondo, how much we do like living here, but and maybe that we want to participate more in the community forums. We want to see more of them. We want our voices heard. I'm going to go ahead and bid the candidates and our audience adieu, unless there's any final comment.
Just
Okay.
thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
And I want
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that this is something that I wish every community was doing. And it's one of the things I want to encourage is that the people need to get involved in their government. So thank you.
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You guys too. The board, please stay on. We'll debrief. Good night.